Hello, and welcome to the Art of Healing in Santa Fe. We are privileged today to be at the seminary in Santa Fe, the Immaculate Heart of Mary Seminary. Our guest today is Archbishop F.Sanchez, and interviewing along with me will be the editor of Crosswinds magazine, Steve Kress. This will also appear in the December issue of Crosswinds magazine, as well air on the public access channel 24. So, good morning and welcome, Archbishop.
Good morning, Bill. Thank you so much.
Thanks for taking time to visit with us.
It's a pleasure to be here with you.
All right. It's not often that we get a chance to interview someone of your position, certainly for public access television, but we're welcome you here today and glad you could make it.
Well, I'm looking forward to it.
All right. Steve has the lion's share of the questions, so I'll turn over to Steve to start the interview.
It's a pleasure to be with you, Archbishop, today. You have a very interesting background. You were raised in the small town of Socorro, New Mexico. At least it was a small town earlier. And you had the distinct honor of being appointed Archbishop in 1974 when you were still 40 years old, which at the time made you the youngest appointed Archbishop in the United States. I'm interested in how it felt at such a young age to rise to such a high position. It must have been a great responsibility to have felt at such a young time in your life.
Yes, Steve, obviously, whenever you are surprised with a responsibility such as this, it's both a surprise, of course, but it's also a tremendous challenge, one that you continue to wonder whether you are prepared for it well enough, and whether you'll be able to do this awesome work for the Lord, because I see it not only as any chief executive officer would see his position as administration, but to me it's much more important because it involves people's lives, the support that the Church has traditionally offered and extended to them, how it guides their values, the raising of children within their families, the sharing of Christian principles of living. And I felt that this was an awesome responsibility for myself. I know I needed a lot of prayer and a lot of support from so many people.
Mm-hmm. You were the first native New Mexican chosen to the position of Archbishop. What do you think that you perhaps contribute that has been special, having been raised in New Mexico, that maybe somebody that came from outside might not have been able to contribute?
Well, I think that when you're raised within a given area, you understand to a large extent the traditional expectations of people, their faith practices. You're familiar with the geography, you've adjusted to the climate, you know your priests as brothers, religious who work with you, other lay leaders. There's a lot there that is of advantage to you. At the same time, being from the local area, you come under greater expectations because people do know you personally. You may have been their parish priest before, as I was in many parishes. And so, of course, those personal expectations add just an extra burden, a greater expectation that you might not have if you came from another area of the country.
Mm-hmm. I imagine being Archbishop, many people probably think it's a very glorified position and a lot of pomp and circumstance. I imagine you really must have a great number of daily obligations that are very burdensome in certain respects.
You know, all ministry today is very difficult and is very challenging. We do not live in the same times today as we did when we were much younger or during the time perhaps of our own parents. Church, religion, the expression of faith, the relationship to each other, just the miracle of communications that puts you in touch with people throughout the world, that has expanded not only our individual worlds and interests, but it expanded our obligations as well. So it's not pomp and circumstance as may have been thought of maybe years ago. It is certainly not that today. It is an awful lot of hard work. You're obliged to be on the go both day and night. And the expectations are great, and you just pray God that your energies continue to hold up.
Archbishop, I'd like to pick up on something you just mentioned regarding the changes that have taken place, particularly for the mass influx of people from other parts of the country and even other parts of the world. Many of these people are Catholic, and many of them are actually, no longer practicing for whatever reason. And I'm sure that presents some interesting dilemmas for ministry, for the already overburdened clergy. Could you discuss that with us?
I'll be happy to. The migration of peoples today, whether it be within a country, as you have just referred to, or between countries, as we see so frequently happening coming to our own country, migration is one of the greatest challenges of the day that we face. It not only uproots people from their normal homeland and their support systems of relatives and friends and neighbors, their job, what they're accustomed to in their life traditions, and then transport them to a new area, but they bring with them those expectations which they've been accustomed to, and then they have to adapt those expectations to a whole new culture of people who have other traditions and other expectations. We then have a pluralism in front of us, each group or many individuals requesting sensitivity, adequate response to their needs, and so the challenge to churches everywhere becomes enormous. It is no longer a challenge from one group of people who have always lived there and with which you're familiar, but now you're challenged with multiple groups and individuals who do need the response of the church, and that takes a great deal of initiative and a work on the part of our ministers.
Is there a particular message that you give to your priests and fellow clergy with regard to these people who perhaps have had a lot of different experiences that may have inhibited their faith, or they weren't able to continue it in the normal fashion, somehow were away for it from a while? I've seen that in my own life, and I know it was a struggle to come back. What comment do you have for ex-Catholics who still are carrying this burden of whatever it is that keeps them from returning to their church?
It's a very fine observation that you make, and it's certainly the challenge that we face too. I always share with my priests that we have to be, in a sense, like the Lord to people. By that I mean we have to express our presence to them in the same way. I believe that Jesus was always showing hospitality to people. He took time to listen to them and time to minister to their needs. He visited homes, regardless of what their positions were or their educational background. He could associate with the saints and with the sinners, with the young and the old, the poor and the wealthy. All people were God's children. And I tell my own clergy that we have to have that same hospitality, that same warmth and personal approach to people, and being approachable, that they too can find in us one who will listen to them and be able to respond as best we can, given our own limitations, to their needs.
What are some of the more pressing social issues that the church is facing here in New Mexico? As a social agency and a pastor, what are some of the primary concerns that you have here?
One of them, of course, we have just mentioned that of the migration of peoples. We have migrations both from the south as well as from the north. Normally, when our country has spoken of migrations, we've talked about people coming here from Europe or from Latin America or from Asian countries. We do have that yet to a high extent because that has been the origin of America. We've always opened our arms to all people. We are not a country of one group of people. We are a country of many groups of people from many nations. But also within America, we've experienced migrations. Since perhaps the 50s, there's been a constant migratory stream of people from one area of the country to another. At one time, California was the Mecca. Everyone headed for the West Coast to find their paradise and make their lives. Today we find a great number of people heading to the Southwest, to the Sun Belt, as it were. People who are seeking a place to retire, others, young couples, seeking opportunities to make their life, many trying to get away from the large metropolitan centers of the Northeast, severe weather, for health reasons, a variety of reasons. And they come out to, not only to New Mexico, but they come to Arizona and Texas and Nevada and so forth. Well, as I've mentioned earlier, with so many different people coming both from outside of our country into New Mexico as well as from other areas, we find ourselves trying to be able to respond to the expectations and the needs of all of these different groups of people. And especially if there are people who feel that they can make a new beginning and they want to return to the Lord, and they come to us to speak about their faith journey, we try to respond, again, with sensitivity, as best we can to honor their needs. We cannot create a different church for every single group or for individuals. We try to integrate people into the churches that we have, with the traditions that we have, while being sensitive also to their background and their cultures. So migration presents its problems. Migration also presents problems of need. People coming to us from Asia or from Latin America, from Mexico, often come with physical needs, economic needs, social needs. They've come out of oppressive situations where war and political situations were threatening their very lives. They seek peace for themselves and an opportunity for their families. And as social agencies, the church reaches out to try to establish the status of these individuals legally with our society. We represent them. We help provide the health needs that they have. We try to provide the educational needs to help them integrate themselves to become productive members of our society. Also, we have a large number of senior members moving into the Southwest, and so our work with senior citizens and their needs, the aging, the aged, those who live alone in homes, our social services try to reach out to these people to provide assistance, transportation, whatever they may need. So it's a variety of things stemming from an increase of people that we did not have before. Our large cities such as Albuquerque, Santa Fe, in a sense Los Alamos, Las Vegas, Clovis, they're more middle-sized. They are concentrating large groups of people, and with the large concentrations comes both economic and social problems and moral problems.
Archbishop, I'd like to bring up some of the more contemporary issues that happen to be in the press of late. Some of the areas of sexuality, also the issues of women's roles in the church, these kinds of things that are often getting the hot button, shall we say, here in the early 90s. Because I want to move through that and project into the next century. But could you give us a few comments about what you've experienced in recent months and years, and what type of advice you've been giving to the clergy in terms of ministering to each other and to the church at large about sexuality and proper use of that?
Well, you've covered quite a variety there. Well, let's begin with some of the women's issues. You've mentioned that. As you have read, the Bishops' Conference at a meeting concluded just a week or so ago had to vote on a document that had been in the making for 9 years. It had gone through various drafts, and it gathered a lot of attention throughout the nation from interested individuals because of its particular content. It was a document that was trying to respond to the real issues of women today, those issues that are challenges for them, issues that they regard to be justice issues, issues that they regard regarding the family life issues, because their own lives have changed so much, and society's reaction to women have not always been that sensitive and supportive. And so we felt that it was necessary as a church to look at this. How are we treating the women of our families, the women of our neighborhoods, the women of our communities, and are we acknowledging who they are and the gifts that they have from the Lord, and how they can reach out, and what roles they have played in the history of mankind and womankind to be able to enhance the common good. And this document that was presented to us was a debatable document. It was up for debate among the bishops, and it received open debate, and the whole issue was televised. And ultimately, when it was presented for vote to be passed as a pastoral letter, it needed to receive 2/3 of the vote of the bishops, because that's our rule on all pastoral letters. It failed to receive it. The vote was a majority, 137 for the document, 110 against. However, it needed more than that in order to pass as a pastoral letter. None of the bishops wanted the document simply to be scrapped because too much had gone into it, and the issues were still very valid. And so they moved that the document could be used in the various departments of the Bishops' Conference as a resource document for study, reflection, dialogue, and so forth. And so it'll stay alive to that degree. It simply will not be issued as a pastoral letter. The key issue that became focused by the media, of course, was the issue of women's ordination. And it was not intended to be a women's ordination document. However, it became transformed into that, unfortunately, because all of the other surrounding issues, which the majority of women are concerned about, were not discussed. We just simply did not have that opportunity to address the pros and cons for them and to emphasize them and to accent them because the other issue had taken precedence. And I felt badly about that because women's issues today go far beyond the desire of ordination within our church. The ordination issue is a doctrinal issue. The Holy See responded to this some 8 years ago and tried to clarify it emphatically as to where it stood, and we thought it was not going to be a discussable issue. It was referred to in the document and then, of course, surfaced again for discussion, and unfortunately took the lion's share of energy and time from the full document. I felt the document had many very fine sections to it that people would appreciate hearing, reading, and being sensitized. But I think that overall I can say a lot of good came from that debate because the awareness of our need to be aware of women and their issues today was surfaced to a much higher degree than we had done before. So because of that, I think blessings have come from the Lord, and blessings will continue to come from the Lord as we work in each of those issues that are facing us.
In regards to this issue, of course, many women feel, especially in these contemporary times where they want to be treated equally, that the Catholic Church has perhaps not always been an environment where they felt they were equals. In what particular ways is maybe the Church trying to make themselves, make women feel like they have a just as important role as men?
Well, I think that churches everywhere, I can't verify every single diocese, but certainly within our own, we make every effort to involve women in every aspect of leadership within our church, which we're allowed to involve. And they are our leaders. I could not operate our archdiocese without that expertise. Not only are they very well educated, but they're very sensitive to people's needs. They're very keenly dedicated to the Lord in their lives. They want to be close to the Lord and to share that closeness with other people. I have to affirm them, and I think dioceses and parishes, by and large, have involved them in these very important and essential positions more than ever, and it's increasing. I think that they're concerned about language within prayers and traditional liturgies. That is being addressed at this very time in the documents that are being reviewed so that proper language, which would be non-offensive and will be more inclusive, can be brought about. And that's, again, sensitivity to them. I don't know what else we can go into at this time, but I would just say overall, a very keen awareness is present today as to the suffering of women. I think, for instance, in terms of the single-parent families and the support that they need. And we try to reach out now with support systems to single-parent families, be it the woman or the man. The majority of the time it is the woman trying to raise her children, trying to hold down her job, oftentimes trying to go to school to better herself and still maintain her relationships to family and to friends. It's an enormous challenge for them. My heart just goes out to them. These are issues that were not always before us before in such great numbers, but they are today, and we'll have to look to them in the coming century as well. The other issue, Bill, that you mentioned regarding morality today, both within the church and out of the church, we know that we're living in changing times. Anyone that cannot say that has not kept their eyes open. Our society has gone through some enormous changes from the 60s onward. We're a more liberated society, we are told, and therefore there's fewer restrictions regarding law and moral values. People are allowed to make their decisions. And we see a great liberalization, as it were, in the whole issue of sexuality, which you've mentioned. We hear it written continually about safe sex. 20, 30 years ago, this would have been a scandal for any newspaper or any discussion. It's almost as though it's being promoted as long as it's safe. And with that type of environment, especially with our younger people, it's going to stick. It's a constant challenge for parents, for families especially, as well as for churches of various denominations to respond to these efforts to liberalize sexual mores. And what effect does that have on family? What does it have on society? It's affected the church. We know today that there's been many allegations and even an arrest of our clergymen, our priests, because of sexual molestation, sexual misconduct. And we look to them not as any different from the rest of society, as it were. The church doesn't live in a vacuum. It lives within the society in which we live, and so very frequently the prevalent issues that are there are affecting us as well. That's not an excuse. Our challenge to all of our priests is to fortify themselves to be strong within an environment that does not always propose the values that we feel are Christ-like values, and that we don't buy into those values ourselves. I think maybe the Lord, in His own words, said, you know, that you build your house upon a foundation of stone, so that when the storms come and the winds and rains lash against it, the house will stand because it's built on a firm foundation. If it's built on sand, it's going to be destroyed. Well, that firm foundation for us has always been a foundation of prayer, of self-discipline, and of support. People's support around you to maintain, keep your eyes on the Lord and maintain that strong spirituality. So these are the messages I try to communicate to my own priests in a time of difficulty, and to all people, because these issues, these allegations are not limited just to churchmen. We are a very small percentage of a huge, enormous picture within our country. This type of abuse is occurring in families. I can't ask any social worker and they'll tell you of the extent, and every profession as well. So we have to ask, what's the common bond? What has caused this? Is it that we're more aware of it today, or is there a multiplication of this breakdown in discipline because of an environment in which we live? What seems to be happening to us? We don't have easy answers. We're searching for the answers. But I do know that we need to be very strict in our screening of candidates for the priesthood, because we're told by the experts today that if people have been abused or come from hurting families, emotionally they will not always be well balanced themselves to handle difficulties. So we have to be very tough in screening. And then we have to be very realistic in our training of those seminarians for the priesthood, so that they know the difficulties that are there and they can prove themselves. And then lastly, after ordination, they have to be well supported, both in their prayer life, their spirituality, and surrounded by support groups.
We're speaking here at the Immaculate Heart of Mary Seminary, and I know you had a very important influence in having this seminary designated as a bilingual and a tricultural institute of learning. And what is there about New Mexico and Catholicism here that maybe is enriched by the cultural mix that we have here?
You know, I think we've been very blessed. I always say uniquely, and maybe that's not an accurate term, but I know there's been a great blessing to this area of the world. It seems to be a sacred area. People that I speak to even today who have come from all parts relate that feeling. It's a combination of the geography of our land, the topography, the light, the shadows, the sunsets. There seems to be a sense of the presence of God, of the divine, that it's more than just business as usual, that there's something mystical about it. And I think that mystical feeling took root 400 years ago with the arrival of Christianity, and it took root thousands of years before that within the native religions of our pueblos. They're deeply spiritual people, and that spirituality pervaded their lives. And with the arrival of Christianity, another dimension of faith and love and hope and godliness was shared with them. And they've captured that as well, and they've been able to integrate their native religion with the Catholic faith. And the others who came to our land, the Hispanic and later the various peoples of all countries who came to this area, have also brought with them that tradition of faith. I think our roots are very deep. The first Catholic Mass celebrated in New Mexico took place almost 400 years ago in 1598, not far from where we're sitting right now. And since that time, the Mass has been celebrated, and I refer to that because that's a center, the core of our Roman Catholic faith, the making of Christ's presence within our celebration of Eucharist. I think that we have something very venerable and precious in age and very healing to offer people here simply because of who we are and what our ancestors have been and the environment in which we live. And I'm not happy when people want to make little of that or to change that, because I'm afraid that the change will not always be for the better. I would rather wish that they would respect what they find and allow that to continue to contribute to the betterment of our society.
I know, Archbishop, you've been very generous with your time, and we're coming to the end of the interview. I would like to give you that opportunity to express to the people of New Mexico whatever message you would like to give them here in this Christmas season when this will air.
Well, Christmas is a very precious time here in New Mexico, as I'm sure it is throughout the world as well. But we have so many beautiful traditions, our lights, our family gatherings, that we all look forward to it. And I suppose what I would say to the people of New Mexico, whom I love very much, is, first of all, be grateful for who you are as men and women, children of God, all, the love that you have for one another. Be grateful also for what you have, your families that surround you, the friends that support you, the jobs that provide for you, all that you have that you call home. And then I would say, share who you are and what you have. The Lord, I believe, expects that of us. Share your joy, because Christmas is a time of joy. Share your love. Love is expressed between families. Do not hesitate to share that. Share your faith, because faith is the reason why we celebrate the Christmas season together. We are people of God. We know and believe in that divine spirit within ourselves. Share that with your families, in your words, in your song, in your presence. And lastly, I suppose I should say, share yourselves. Allow yourself to be loved and allow yourself to love others, those who surround you. We have to embrace the world once again with the love of Christ. And if you can share that, then I believe that we're doing what the Lord God came into the world to do, and that was to share himself with us. And we then began to share ourselves with others. Make that your Christmas gift to one another, and I know that your holiday season, this Christmas season, will be a blessed one for all of you.
Thank you, Archbishop. Thank you, Steve. So on behalf of the Art of Healing in Santa Fe, I'd like to thank you for watching. I'd especially like to thank Archbishop Sanchez for taking time, and Steve Kress of Crosswinds. If you're watching this on television, please pick up a copy of Crosswinds magazines for December '92, and you'll see this interview in depth. So, Merry Christmas to all of you, and thank you.
You know. Thank you.
We worked you pretty hard. You did a good job.
Oh, you did a very good job. I
Thank
really
you.
appreciate it. Yeah.
That's
really touched a lot of people. So.
Well, good. I'd like to see a copy of your,
Yeah, we'll definitely get you.
make that your Christmas gift to me.